Doc, I first met you back in the fall of 1985. Do you remember that meeting?
I remember meeting, yeah. Do you want in my office or the one on the phone?
The one in the office.
In the office, yep.
So I was finishing up my master's degree in New Testament studies.
Yep.
And I had Jeff Jack as a roommate.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an Australian. He'd been my roommate for, I think, 3.5 years.
Uh-huh.
And he had been in that MA in Christian apologetics with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that I was experiencing some doubts.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything actually I'd learned. It was just I started to think, I've been brought up in a Christian family. Here I am going to a Christian university. I've only been exposed to the Christian view. Now, I was praying at that point, an hour, many times 2 hours a day, reading the scriptures several hours a day. I mean, I was into it.
Wow.
And I really felt I had this close relationship with God.
Uh-huh.
In fact, to be honest with you, I had no use for apologetics. It's like, hey, I know Christianity's true, and I just wanted to be able to read the New Testament in Greek and get as much out of it as I could.
Sure.
But then one day I started to think, how do I know this is really true? Have I brainwashed myself? What about people who live in Afghanistan, who brought up in a Muslim family?
Mm-hmm.
They're every bit as convinced that Islam is true as I am Christianity's true. Or if you've been brought up in India, maybe you're a Muslim, or in China you're an atheist. How do I know that what I believe is true?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, it's fun studying the New Testament in Greek and learning all this, but if Christianity isn't true, I don't care what the Bible says in Greek or English or anything.
Right.
For me,
Right.
it's no different than reading the Homeric epics if it's not true. So Jeff said, well, why don't you go talk to Gary Habermas? We'd never met. I heard you speak once in chapel when you first came to the school, but we'd never met. I can remember knocking on the door of your office, and you invited me in, and I said, while I was there, Jeff had encouraged me to come see you, and, I was doubting. And you said, come on in, sit down. And you said, first, I want you to know you have nothing to be embarrassed about. I have a lot of guys come in here who are doubting. And then you told me you had doubted.
Starting with me, yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me, you really helped me. And, I mean, it did stop my doubts at that point. It cured them for that moment, but then they came back later. But
Sure.
Let's talk about doubt a little bit. You said you started doubting when you were about 13 years old.
I sure did.
Was there anything in particular that led you to that kind of doubt?
Yeah, the closest person to me in my life died when I was 8 years old. And according to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, an expert on death and dying, children form their ideas of death between the ages of 8 and 11. I didn't realize it, but I thought later that probably triggered it. And of course, just a few years after she died, I had these questions. So that's how it started. And once again, I'd like to say, I did this to help the world. Actually, I did it to help Gary Habermas.
Yeah, well, that's what I was in for myself, too.
Yeah.
So, what do you share, what do you say to someone who's having doubts? I mean, because there's a couple kind of doubts, aren't there?
Sure. First of all, I listen to it. Just listen. And it's not scientific, but you can usually nail it in 5 minutes or less.
Okay.
And I hypothesize that there are at least three kinds of doubt. Factual / philosophical questions, God, evil, evidence. Emotional questions.
When you say God, evil, evidence, in other words, you're saying people don't know the evidence, they're wondering if Christianity is true, problem of evil, why does God allow all the evil?
Why do bad things happen to good people?
Gotcha.
And, but then often questions that are unanswered stagnate, grow, extend, and they often become emotional. And in emotional issues, the crazy thing is you could have 5 evidences for something, and you could upset the whole apple cart with 2 words. What if? What if we're wrong?
Yep. That's mine. That's what causes mine at times.
Yeah, but I got these evidences. And what if I missed the boat?
Yep. What if I'm wrong? What if there's people who are smarter than me and they've come to different conclusions?
Yeah.
What if I'm just missing something here?
And they're just as secure.
Yep.
And then oftentimes doubt that the facts are not answered kind of morphs to emotional. Just like in everyday life, when your needs aren't met, you get emotional. They often morph to a third stage, which I call volitional.
Okay.
And that's like to use a big word, stultification, like, forget it. I just don't care anymore. If God doesn't care about me, I don't care about him. Whatever. My friends try to get me to church. I'm not wasting Sunday morning. Can't get answers to anything. So you kind of get angry, and I'm done.
Well, why would that not be emotional?
Oh, it can start emotionally, but it's often the person who's in that frame of mind is settled. They don't care. It's like,
Gotcha.
Doesn't meet my needs. The emotional wants with all their heart, wants it to meet their needs. And I'll add this, in studies, by far most doubt is emotional. I'd
Okay.
say 70-80%.
So what do you tell a person who's experiencing emotional doubt? How do you help them? Does intellectual arguments, like does evidence, is that the answer?
Evidence can help, but I'll tell you what happens. If I were to answer that person's evidential doubts, they go, hey, thanks. 3 days later, theoretically, be back in my office. You know something I was thinking? How do I know this is true? How do I know? All right, great. So facts can help, but it's trumped by emotions. So you have to teach them. That's not especially anything to do with apologetics. You have to teach them how to handle their emotions. C.S. Lewis said famously, you have to tell your emotions where to get off.
What would you say to someone who's experiencing emotional doubt? What counsel would you give them?
Well, I actually got into psychology from this and went back and did some post-PhD studies. And I would use a cognitive approach, which tells your emotions where to get off. One form of it, Albert Ellis's form, is called ABCs. The A's are what happened to you. The B's are how you download them.
So give us an example. How would you apply this ABCs, this cognitive therapy?
Well,
What's it called again? Is it cognitive behavioral
cognitive
therapy?
or cognitive behavioral.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
How would you apply it?
Basically, what that means is you dictate to your emotions. You
Okay.
dictate reality to emotions.
So give us an example how this
Sure.
could, a person with
Well-
doubt, how this could help them.
Sure, let's say that you got 5 evidences for the resurrection. Your best friend's a Hindu. Whenever you ask him if he has any evidences, he goes, no, but I'm fine, don't need any. And you go, what if he's right? I go, what do you have? 5 evidences. Will Christianity be true if the resurrection's true? Yeah, I think so, that's why I studied it. Okay, does he have anything? No. Did you ever ask him when his holy books are, how long after they were supposed to have been said? No, but I looked one up and it was a couple thousand years,
Yeah.
which is actual cases.
Yeah.
And you go, well, wait a minute. You may not need evidence, but why is a lot of evidence the same as no evidence?
Okay.
So that's what you say to yourself. You're saying, I'm sick of this. I'm not going to feed myself baloney that no evidence is just as good as some evidence. You go, where's your evidence? And you recite the 5 evidences for the resurrection. Now you're secure for a while. You go, yeah, but I came back. Then do it again. Make another list for another.
Okay, so how does that play out with the ABCs? What's the A's?
A's are things that happen to you.
Okay.
And people go, yeah, but you don't understand. I was in a car accident. My dad died.
But what's the A's in your
That's an
example
A.
here?
A is activating events.
All right, activating events, but when you talk about it with the guy who's a Christian who's doubting because he has a Hindu friend, what's the A there?
The A could be anything that is causing the pain. See, a lot of people assume that when you get fired, when you lose your girlfriend, when someone dies, you have a car accident. Those are things that get me thinking about my doubts. And the biggest producer of pain, this is proven, the biggest producer of pain is not what happens to you. It's how you download what happens to you. It's what you tell yourself about it. So you have to...
So what is it you're telling yourself with this Hindu guy?
I've got 5 evidences. He's got nothing. Now, he's happy not to have any. I'm not happy not to have any. So So I've studied it, and I got 5 for this. I got 5 for the New Testament. I got.
So that's the B. That would be a good B. What would
That's-
be a bad B?
Wow, I never thought about that. Maybe I'm the one going to hell.
Ah,
Maybe
so it's
what
just,
the New Testament says is false, and I could just do what he does and never do anything religious and be on the same straight and narrow he is. That's a bunch of bad B's.
so the way to deal with your doubts in a case like that is to change your B's.
Exactly.
And it's not positive thinking. You want to have correct B's
Because it's based on data.
fact. Gotcha. And then C is what?
See our consequences. When you keep doing it, you go, yeah, but you're missing my point. This came back the next time I thought about it. I say, no, you're missing my point. Next time it comes back, do the same thing. Why use those 5 evidence for the resurrection already? Use them again.
So the consequences. Okay. So if you have bad B's, the consequences are going to be the doubts, the worrying.
Get anxious.
You break up, you get fired. It's like, oh, I'm going to lose my house. And that might be true, and that could result. But you might change your B's by saying, yeah, I could lose my house, but I'm probably going to get another job here. I'm going to go out and I'm going to work 2 jobs.
And this has happened to 10,000 people, and they've lived.
Gotcha. So that would be a better B, and it's going to result
Those
in
are
less.
secular B's. Religious B's would be, I got 5 evidences. So they're different species. Here's another kind. I think I'm going to go jog. I'm going to go ride a bike. Those are B's too.
Yeah.
Because by exercising, you're getting the fumes out, if you want to think of it that way. There's a lot of ways to change your B's.
So ABC's good way to deal with emotional doubt. The key to it. So A is
What happens to you?
the activating thing. Yeah. What happens? B is what you tell yourself about it. C
Good
is the
or bad.
consequences.
That's correct.
The results. So what you want to do with emotional doubts is you want to make sure you have correct B's.
Yep.
And it's usually you got bad B's that are causing the doubts.
Yeah, like C.S. Lewis says.
If it's emotional.
Here's a good line from Lewis. Just like he said, tell your emotions where to get off. Here's another good one. You got to train the habit of faith. Well, this keeps coming up. Then keep giving an answer. You're training. How many times do you have to memorize the multiplication table? Training.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, thanks a lot.
you're
Appreciate
welcome.
your insights.
Glad to help. I know we all struggle like this.
Yeah.